You know Gork and them?
I do. Yeah, I've gotten to know Gork. I met him in well, officially in February. But when I was a kid, he actually he would come and race at one of the local tracks up in Washington when he worked for Seattle Bike Supply.
Oh, God, when you were a kid and he was working. So I
Uh,
remember Craig when he was the starter at our local races around the Sacramento area
really?
at the UBR races. Yeah, he was a starter. And when him and his brother weren't racing side hacks, he'd be the local starter for the tracks.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah, it's 80, 81, 82. So,
he used to bring Redline side hacks, as I would say it was probably a form of marketing, as much as it was fun. But he would bring those up to our local
of course,
tracks.
for him, it was probably first fun, then marketing.
That makes
He's
sense.
a diehard side hacker from way back.
BMX Breakthrough is bridging the gap from old school to new school, from tracks to manufacturers, from new riders to their local tracks, and it doesn't stop at racing, but the mission is to connect people with bikes. Join me, Jay Oaks, as I interview key people in the sport and in the industry that are involved in their local circles, in their communities, at their local tracks, and aiming to make a difference on a local level. You'll hear stories, marketing tips, failures, successes, and a way to make a difference in your local BMX community. Let's dive in as we kick off this next episode.
Yeah, so my name's Todd Huffman. I've been involved with bicycle industry for a long time. Future past racer, pro racer. I got to had the privilege of being on Team SE back when it was a thing, and we were known as kind of the bad boys on the block, and rode in the infamous bus in 1982 on tour. And yeah, I left. I was working for them as a sales rep, and then I quit there. And me and Bob Morales started More Distributing, which also ended up creating the Auburn brand that GT made for us, and did that for a few years, and then went to work for GT for 10 years as their marketing director. And that was really fun time because it was in the heyday of the mountain bike development, and the BMX teams were just blowing up. We were called the firm, and for good reason, because we had four different teams and they were all winning, and just the development of the bikes and the products and everything was really cool. And then after that, attempted to be in the event business, put on a couple of these events called inverts, which were kind of like a precursor to the X Games, and they weren't successful. They were kind of innovative, but and at the same time was starting up a video production company. So that's kind of taken up the bulk of the last 20 years. And then a few years ago I stumbled across the idea with Johnny Valdez on getting some people together to create kind of a NorCal BMX reunion, and maybe a party or a weekend or something that turned into what we now know as the Frogtown Classic BMX Days. So, and for that, the rest is history, right? So,
That's
and we're working
awesome.
on year 4, so September 6th through the 8th,
Perfect.
2024, Frogtown 4 happens. So,
And I cannot advocate enough for that event. Man, I have been, I will say that it has changed my life, which sounds incredibly cliche to say, but I mean, Todd, you and I have spent a bit of time together now. Wasn't able to be at the first one, but being at the last two Frogtown events has just been so much fun, and it has ignited a whole new level of desire and excitement for the sport of BMX in my life. So,
well, and I think in other, you're not alone. We have, been saying that, the last couple of years, like, we're creating new old BMXers, right? Guys that haven't been on a bike or in 30 or 40 years, come to Frogtown, either the first one, the second one, or this year. And they're now going back to their local tracks and riding every week and training and starting teams and dragging their kids and grandkids to the races, and they're riding. And Robert Taylor, who rides for Race Incorporated, Race Inc., just won the grants, right? And as of before September of last year, he hadn't been on a bike in 40 years. And after Frogtown, he started riding and going to nationals, and had a big old honking trophy taller than him, like he was when he was a kid, holding in his hands with his gold Race Inc. there, from Tulsa. So it's really cool to see, and you're not alone. That people, I think, forgot how big a part of life those 20-inch bikes with knobby tires were back in the day, and getting to feel like they're 15 again. So
absolutely. Well, so to that, one of my questions for you would be, what do you see as the value of the old school BMXers? So whether they're old school BMXers that were still involved, or are involved as a result of some sort of spark, whether it be Frogtown or Dirty Fest or any one of the old school events, something is reignited in them. What is the value that you see of those people being involved in the sport?
Well, they can buy a new USA BMX membership just like a 12-year-old can, or a 12-year-old's parents can, right? And so, however many handful or several handfuls or 100 handfuls of riders that are buying memberships is good for whether they're 6 or 60, right? So, that can do nothing but help the sport. It adds, collectively a few motos to the local racetrack moto count during the week, or twice a week, or whatever they're racing. So it just adds to the numbers, and those people buy products. So there's new bike sales going out. You guys riding those Race Incs, are probably selling some of those Race Inc cruisers, right? To guys that need to buy a new bike because they don't have a bike. They sold their bike 40 years ago, maybe borrowed one for the Texas, BMX Classic or Dirty Fest or something, and they need a bike now, right? And so, and they can afford to spend the money, right? That's the other part. They got discretionary income, right? And so they can afford to travel, because maybe some are even retired by now, right? And their family members look up to them, their kids and their grandkids and whatever. So it's the trickle down effect is maybe even more so than with a kind of, I'll say, a modern dad, if that's a term, or a modern mom, that their kid gets into BMX racing because the kid down the street does it, right? So the evangelism effect from an established person who grew up with BMX in their life, even if it was 40 years ago, is really strong and beneficial to the sport overall.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that you have, like you said, you have discretionary funds when you are, maybe into your 40s, 50s, 60s, you have a little bit larger discretionary fund. You probably don't have as many kids at home, if any. And so you have a little bit more freedom to be involved in the sport. But one of the things that has stood out to me being a part of these events, and the part of the desire of the BMX Breakthrough Project, is to continue creating that bridge from old school to new school. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have a conversation with you was based on the fact that there are so many opportunities, and going to the old school events, being able to meet the founders of a sport. And I say founders as, the original pros, or meeting someone like Bob Osborne, or meeting the original photographers, meeting these people that are foundational to the sport. And there aren't many sports where you can meet and know the people that started something and started a movement. And I just think it's so cool and valuable for a 13-year-old now who's competitive in the sport to be able to look at and meet some of the original pros from the sport of BMX.
Yeah, I mean, you see the enthusiasm. I mean, you've been there 2 years now. I mean, look at our legend autograph session, right?
Yeah.
Look who we got there, and look at the line of people of all ages lined up for 60, 90, 120 minutes to get the autograph from these guys. And where else, do you get to see those? I mean, obviously the Hall of Fame and things like that, there's around regionally, but the sheer concentration of them in Angels Camp, on that Saturday is pretty special. And at the end of the day, these guys are just, and gals are just regular people at the end of the day. And they may have been a superstar in the past, but now they're just grandparents themselves, and they just want to hang out too. They're just as enthusiastic about being there as you are, or someone else that maybe wasn't a BMX pioneer or superstar back in 1981, but they're just happy to be there too. You know what I mean? And they're just happy that guys like you and I are enthusiastic about them being there, and they're getting to kind of relive their childhood too. So at the end of the day, they're just BMX fans.
Yeah, I think that getting to meet you. So the first time that I met you, I'd heard about the Frogtown event, but I met you at the BMX Society show in 22 when Bob Osborne was given a Lifetime Achievement Award, and got to talk to you about it. And that got me excited. I saw the dates on the postcard that you were giving out. And that was when my dad and I started making plans that, okay, we're going to be there. And so I think at that point I started to get really excited, and that event was a huge jumping off point for this project in and of itself. But the idea of that was reinvigorating, and I had taken 20 years away from BMX racing at that point. And then I started seeing, as we got back into it, I started seeing all the valuable pieces of the way that BMX contributed to my life, and what it had added to my life, and seeing that, okay, my kids can be a part of this too, and they can meet these people that were a part of starting the sport. And that was just, I think that was just really exciting to me because of the opportunity. And I love the history of the sport. And so where you come in, and you've been so valuable, as you were talking about Johnny, and you working on the Frogtown Classic BMX days. So what was your launching point, or what was the spark that ignited that flame in order to get this whole project moving forward?
Heck, a new industry movement, so to speak, right? When you think about it, what's kind of was born out of that event now. So, there's been a host of those regional Hall of Fames that have sprung up in the last few years. The Texas one is probably the most prominent one, but they have them now in Florida and New Jersey and Nebraska, and as California's kind of the birthplace of BMX, Southern California in particular, Northern California wasn't far behind it, right? And and a lot of the National BMX Hall of Fame members seem to come from Southern California, right? So there'd been some talk of, Johnny created and ran the UBR, and we're like thinking, oh, we should get some people together, just have a UBR reunion, not even talk about like a Hall of Fame or anything. And everybody's been to that lame high school reunion, that takes place in some crappy hotel ballroom for a few hours, every 10 years or 5 years, whatever, right? And you barely get to talk to anybody. You have one conversation with one person, and somebody else pulls you away, and you don't ever get back to that person, and then you don't see them again for 10 years, right? So, we know that experience. And as we talked about this, like, God, yeah, but we don't, even the BMX Hall of Fame, which is awesome, there's just not enough time in a few hours to rekindle some of these good times and memories that you had with all these people. And so when Johnny and I were kind of kicking it around about doing something, I said, well, what if we did like a weekend thing, like found a place, maybe we even had a race or something. And Johnny says, oh, that'd be kind of cool. And just because he lives up by there, I just kind of blurted out, I said, what's up with the old Frogtown property? Like, half kidding, And Johnny just said, it's still there. I said, what do you mean it's still there? He says, yeah, they haven't ever touched it since the track was there, 40 years ago. he says they still park cars on it for the frog jumping, the fair once a year, you know? And I said, oh, that's amazing. He goes, I was just by there a week ago, you know, looked over at it, you know? And I said, well, that's really interesting, you know? And so that was before COVID, I think. And so obviously that just stalled everything. But man, soon as 2020, later in 2020 started coming around, we started talking about early 2021. And man, I started making some calls. You know, the first people I call is the fairgrounds, you know, hey, you interested in this? This used to happen here 40 years ago. And Lori Giannini, the fair director, was like, sounds great, let's do it, you know? And I was like, wow, you know, okay, that hurdle's been crossed, you know, getting the dirt, you know?
Yeah.
And then it was just a matter of, you know, finding people to run the races. And, you know, Johnny, of course, he had to challenge me. He's like, Todd, you know, it'll cost at least 25 grand to do that thing, you know? And I said, yeah, okay, so what? You know, he's like, you know, but, you know, raising those kinds of sponsorship monies and little chunks like that from companies is not a scary deal for me. I've been doing it my whole life, you know, so, you know, from chasing WD-40 and LA Gear and whatever at GT Bicycles all those years ago. So, you know, to our own events, you know, I'm not afraid to ask people for money for putting a logo on some poster and some banners along a racetrack. So
that's cool.
It's funny, deterring force at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny how nonchalantly you say this. So, I mean, if for anybody listening to the conversation, Todd, when you said we got the land and then all we had to do was put together, you know, the people to run the races and all that stuff. And Todd, it's funny because I've been there, I've been a part of it, and obviously it has expanded. It's grown in the last 3 years of time. I wasn't there on the first year, but all you have to do is, and it's a massive event. It's become this massive thing. So it's funny how nonchalant you are about all the work that actually has gone into it.
Well, and I know I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but I think part of that is we just know we're going to find the people that want to help, right? We know.
Makes sense.
Just knew that this was going to be something that everybody would want to be part of. Like, so it's not like we were going to go have to run an ad in Craigslist to find, hey, looking for people that have a background in BMX racing that may want to, like, no, it was just, you put the, you know, it's like the Field of Dreams, right?
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come, you know, kind of a deal, right? Or he will come.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it just felt like that was going to be the easy part, is getting help to do it, right? That's awesome. I'm fortunate to know a bunch of these legend guys, you know. I raced with them, been dealing with them in the industry forever, and so to call the Pattersons, you know, to see if they want to even come and they think it's a good idea, or John Cruz or whatever. But then, you know, hey, do you guys want to be a sponsor too? Because they own a big company in the Bay Area, you know. Or Toby Henderson, you know, his company, I think they were the first ones to say, yeah, we'll be a sponsor, you know. So and that just when you can start name dropping people who are going to be there, you know, it's helpful, you know. Yeah. Oh, the Pattersons will be there. Oh, John Cruz did the logo, he's designing trophies, you know.
That's cool. I know for me, it's been really fun to get to meet people. And like you said, you have the reunion side of things where to bring people into that. If it would have just been a UBR reunion, there's a good chance that it wouldn't have gotten my attention. My dad might have been interested in going, but it might not have been something that he drug me along to and said, hey, you should come to this. But the way that you ended up designing it was to be a race and to make it fun for the whole family and to make it something that anybody could participate in. And then the fact that it's 3 days long, it is something that I've been able to build a relationship with people that I might have never met aside from that. And I've built good friendships and relationships with people over the years or the last, I guess, solid year of getting to meet people and race with people and being able to have conversations, because you can sit there or you can race during the day, and then in the evening you have dinner, go out, grab a beer, whatever the case may be, and you have a lot of time to build relationship as opposed to just a couple hours in the ballroom.
Yeah, and honestly, that was the whole design. I mean, the racing is just kind of a byproduct of it, but we wanted people that had these, kind of long, meaningful relationships when they were kids to have the time to hang out, and that's why it's 3 days. In fact, that's why it's going to be more, not more than 3 days, but we're going to go back to making Sunday as important as Saturday, right? So people have to hang out longer, right? And that was just by design, so.
Yeah. And speaking to the level of fun, I mean, there are a lot of people that are probably listening to this that back home that have heard me go on rants about how much they should prioritize coming to Frogtown. This year was our area's, the Northwest Gold Cup qualifier. So there were a lot of people that mentioned wanting to go to Frogtown, but they just had Gold Cup. And I said, oh man, this will be so much more fun. This will be way more fun. And they had already booked things, and they didn't want to back out of it. And they had an opportunity to earn a Gold Cup one plate. So I completely understood that. But it is a level of fun that I think is hard to understand unless you've been there. But I just want to tell you this, because I think that it's helpful for you to know, is that I talk about it as the most fun racing of the year that I get to do. I love racing on modern BMX tracks because I just enjoy the racing in and of itself. But this last week I was at Grands, and I ended up getting to see Cheeseburger, Jason Morris, and we ended up racing together for 2 classes. And anyway, I was coming up to him at practice, and I said, hey, how's it going? And he goes, I'd be smiling a whole lot more if we were on an old school track right now.
Oh, it's caused me to drink a tear.
Well, I mean, we were talking about it, and I said, this is fun and all, but those tracks are definitely the most fun. And so we were in agreement on that. And 100%, it was very sincere. It was because there's nothing quite like that, because nobody's competing for points. There's a trophy on the line, but everybody's smiling. They're having a good time. I guess there might be some people that get overly competitive, but you're just out there to play in the dirt on 2 wheels.
Yeah, when people can get, pushed off the turn by Chris Moeller, or taken out by Jason Morris, gets taken out by his own team manager or team leader, or he crashes and everybody gets up laughing, covered in dirt and dust, and not locked into soil tack or whatever. I get the most kick seeing the little kids, riding with flat pedals, knobby tires, and they're having the time of their life, and I think I talked to some kids on Sunday at Frogtown, said, hey kids, how do you, and these are little 8-year-old and 10-year-old kids. I said, how do you like the track? And they go, oh, this is the best track. It's really fun. I'm like, okay, my job is complete. Pack it up, go home,
Yeah.
So.
Well, because there's a different art involved to modern racing. There's a lot of, it's very fast, but you have smooth tracks. And there's a variable that you have on the old school tracks that don't factor into modern racing, which is, having potholes, having blown out corners, having flat corners, all the dust.
Yeah, rocks that all of a sudden miraculously appear out of the ground and all of a sudden get rolled into your way or something.
They do. And it makes it fun. And my kids love Frogtown. They haven't been yet. This is the funny part. They haven't been yet, but they have Frogtown jerseys because my grandpa brought them back. Or G-Pa rather, he brought back jerseys after the first year. And I've heard my son in staging telling 5-year-olds, this is my Frogtown jersey. And he absolutely loves the idea. My kids got to go to Dirty Fest this last year, and because that wasn't during school. And so it would just fit into the schedule a little bit better. But talking about that is they had so much fun, and they know Toby. And so when they saw that Toby was in their pit bike moto, my 5-year-old started saying, I'm going to beat Toby. And it's just, it's so fun to watch these little kids and it's not just my kids, but other people's kids as well, that just really enjoy the environment that has been created amidst a bunch of people that are just there to have a good time.
Well, and we have come across several kids, yet, because that area up there where Angels Camp is, there's not much up there. The closest track is 90 minutes away, or almost 2 hours, so they don't have that kind of activity going on up there. And Frogtown was a lot of, not a lot, but a handful of kids' first BMX race. Right.
Wow.
Because they had an older brother or a friend or whatever. It was just because they heard about it and then they told mom and dad, hey, I want to do this. And they show up with a completely stock, too big, overloaded with reflectors and chain guards bike, and they race. Or the parents heard about it and said, hey, do you want to do this? This looks like fun. And they show up with a helmet and whatever, and guess what? They're BMX racers now, right? And Absolutely. They're going to find their way 90 minutes down the hill to Manteca or somewhere else, to start racing, Roseville, Oak Creek. And they'll become BMX racers, because of a positive experience at Frogtown,
Yeah. Yeah. Because all of a sudden they've been able to see it. And I know the conversations that I've had are there are different BMX t-shirts that I have as a result of going to Frogtown, and they start these conversations of, like the second year Frogtown shirt, it was tan with I can't remember who was on the front or who was on the front of it. Jimmy Dean. Yeah. Okay. And so that shirt in and of itself, it started a conversation where people would say, hey, I used to read a magazine that looked like that. And so we've had conversations around that. Or I talked to people about went to this old school BMX race, and do you have history in the sport? And they'll talk about when they were a kid and they used to ride a bike. And they said, I think the guys that I used to watch ride, I like Bob Harrow. And I said, oh, he was there. Oh, he was there. And so it's really neat, because then all of a sudden there's a conversation that leads to, wow, I haven't been on my bike in a lot of years. I bet my kid might like that. Is there a track around here?
Yeah. See?
And it's conversation starter.
That's ground zero for a renewed BMX racer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, did you Jay, did you see any Frogtown jerseys at Oklahoma?
I don't think I saw any Frogtown jerseys. Okay.
I'm not surprised. No. It would just be really cool if you did.
It would. Yeah. Unfortunately, now I'm wishing that I could say that I had, but no, I didn't see any there. I saw one recently. Where was I? I was at a track recently where I saw somebody in a Frogtown jersey, and I was really surprised. And so anyway, we ended up having a conversation about it though. And they had gone, but I didn't see them at the race. I can't even remember who it was, but I hadn't seen them at the event. But I think that what you've done though is really neat, because like I said, the value of people being involved in BMX is above and beyond, I think, what you can actually put into a tangible concept, or anything that you can actually grasp. I think there's so much value to it. And then the memories that can be made from it. And then the level of being able to be on your bike, being able to race, whether you're competitive or not, it doesn't matter if you're winning. There are a lot of people that will go out there literally just to ride the track.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, this year I always tell my friends, these guys who are legendary, BMX legends and even others that are so excited to get back out there knowing they're pretty competitive, and I'm like, guys, remember, we all have to work on Monday, right? And as we know, we've had, good thing we have a hospital as a sponsor at Frogtown, right? Because we definitely use them, right? And that's why we created that, for the glory only class, right? No
Yeah.
awards, no points, no scorekeeping. You just get to roll off the gate 3 times with your buddies, and know that all these people are cheering you on the sides. That's what you're riding for, So
Yeah. Or the class that you created this last year, that was it was not bike specific, but it was just was it just age category?
yeah, the age opens. But well, because the whole idea, because obviously way back when, between 1975 and I don't know 83 to 85, man, the technology evolution was really steep, right? So the first idea was, hey, let's have these era correct classes, because no one's really racing as an intermediate or an expert. So the whole skill level categorization doesn't really matter, right? It's all about the bikes, right? Um and that was all cool, but we found that some people had bikes like from 1977, but like their buddy has a bike from like 83, right? Or a cruiser, right? And they want to ride the era correct class, but they also just want to race against their buddy, right? They want to line up with their friend. And so then we created these age group opens. That's kind of, hey, you can ride whatever, 20-inch, 26-inch, older, newer,
Yeah.
and it's been really popular, not as popular. I think the retro cruiser class is still the most popular.
I would agree with
Big
that.
pop cruiser class. Yeah, that Toby and Stu and all those guys ride.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That's
think
our
there are a lot
number
of
one
guys,
class.
and this last year you divided it because I think there were a lot of people coming out just because they wanted to be able to say that they had beat one of the old school pros.
Yeah, we would have if we would have left it combined, it would have been, we would have had like 16ths, semis or something, so we ended up breaking it up into, I think, 4 or 5 age groups. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to watch. I will say that one thing that I learned this last year, and I'm conflicted about it, is because I ended up racing 3 classes on Saturday, and I ended up racing so much that I didn't actually get to watch a whole lot of racing because I was always climbing back up the hill. And so that's one of the balances that is tough to figure out, because I enjoy the racing side. Then after Frogtown, Chris Muller had talked about on Instagram how he enjoyed just racing one class this year as opposed to year 2 where he raced like, I don't know, 8 different classes.
oh yeah,
And he
I
said
think
he actually got to watch.
5. He had his wife and kids pushing his bikes up to the starting line so he could get up in time. It was a family effort for the Muller family, so
Yeah.
well, and I don't know, seems like better now than ever to start eking information out. I think we're gonna, for this year, 2024, next year, still 2023, we're gonna kind of move to a 2-moto system, total points.
Okay.
If you get rid of the third moto, we forget everybody's in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They don't need the third moto, but they need to you need to qualify the same amount of people to the semi or the main for sure. But we get 33% of our time back by only having 2, which means more hangout visit time, slows everything down a little bit. And more than likely, we're going to put the semis and mains back to Sunday.
Okay.
So we're going to force people to stay one more night. Sunday, was kind of not as good as it should have been this year because everybody left, right? And, we still have new people coming to race the modern classes, and they hear about this great vintage and all the stars of the sports are there and these sponsors, and well, no one's there, and we charge people to park, and so we just need to make Sunday more interesting again. And so, and we also have promised, we've always talked to the community leaders that, hey, we're there to help the economy of the town too, right? So, by making everybody stay one more night, that's just more breakfasts and dinners being bought at local restaurants and hotels and whatever, so the goal is to still get done early enough on Sunday that people can still get on the road, to get home to LA or San Diego or Washington or whatever,
Yeah.
Reasonable time. So,
well, I think unfortunately there's something that's lost if it's just a one-day event. And I felt that this last year. And so to advocate on your behalf is being able to be at that event and staying the evening. You can go out to get dinner or go out and hang out with friends on that Saturday night and Sunday when there were, because people left for Sunday, they would say, oh, I'm going to head out late Saturday, or I'm going to head out first thing Sunday. And so you just wouldn't see them. And I feel like it lost a little bit. I really enjoyed the 2-day type of system that we had used, just because it required you to come back, and it extended the whole idea. It felt like it was a full weekend of being able to ride and being able to hang out and being able to have conversations with people. And so I think that that's fantastic.
Well, keep cheerleading it, because it feels like that's the way it's going to happen. And hey, we're going to give people plenty of time Saturday. Hopefully we get done early. People can go home, go back to the hotels, take a nap, get ready to go to our party Saturday night if we do that thing again. Heck, you just got to rest up to head out for the Dirty Fest deal down at my bar, downtown Angels Camp, right? You need to rest up for that thing, those nights.
Yeah. Because you gotta see if you're ready to hang out with Mike Miranda and keep the same kind of hours that dude can keep.
Oh yeah, and his posse.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, him and Eric and JV, they were down at my bar, and I may have quit. I definitely quit before them. I decided I was going to go get some sleep.
Well, there's nothing wrong with us being done by 2:00 on Saturday. Like, done. We're done for today. Maybe we do awards for the bike show on Saturday, and that's it. So the bike show people get their moment in the sun, because the big day, for the vintage racing is the final Sunday, right? So,
yeah.
Anyhow, those are some plans. Things are kind of happening. So,
yeah, I think it's fantastic. So having new riders come in to Frogtown, and you've been able to see this a few years now, and I think for the last couple of years, there's a pretty big few motos full of kids on striders, full of younger kids. I mean, the time that you've gotten to spend with those kids and the parents, and are you seeing that as like reinvigorating some of the excitement, or further fueling the fire and this love for BMX for those kids?
Yeah, I mean, it has to. I mean, a lot of those kids are there because all of a sudden I like to use the, term Walter Isaacson used in the book about Steve Jobs, right? And something I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, Steve Jobs created products that people didn't know they needed yet. Right.
Yeah.
Like the iPod or iPhone or iMac, whatever. Like he, and so we kind of feel like we created something that people didn't realize they needed in their lives. Right. And not that, and no one's a Steve Jobs, but at least for BMX, these grandparents and parents, they didn't know they still love the sport as much as they did, and had an opportunity to see something that they recognize, right, in a place that they recognize, with people that they know from the past, and they're not intimidated by, the modern BMX track is kind of intimidating these days. Even the old guys who were around back in the day, they see what happens in the Olympics, and wow, that does not look like what I used to do, right? But also they hear about something that is like they used to do, and now they're dragging their kids or their grandkids to say, hey, Grandpa G-Pa wants to go do this, right? You can come with me and bring that strider too, right? So, and of course, then it bridges the gap for them, right? of interest level. And pretty soon, Frog only happens once a year, right? I'm not going to do it every week and whatever. We can't. So, but now they got it, they were infected with it, right? The BMX, flu or whatever it is, right? And so they need to exercise that, scratch that itch, and Oak Creek or Manteca or whatever is going to solve it for them. And the kids are just happy to be on two wheels with GPAW, and GPAW is kind of trying to figure out how to ride these funny bikes with the seats too low and whatever. But that's what everybody's doing. That's all the kids are doing, right? So they start doing it, and pretty soon they're forming a team, and they're team managers, and and at the end of the day, those kinds of riders, man, are the best people to have as like team managers and starting teams, because they know they've been around. Their learning curve is very short to figuring it out, right?
Yeah,
they have to kind of get their wings wet a little bit, to get going again, so
that's true. I think that's good. And I would agree with that. I think some of the conversations, and like we touched on a little bit earlier, is those conversations that you can have, and kids being able to walk through and see even the evolution of bicycles and how far those have come, because there are a lot of kids that show up at Frogtown and they've only ever seen an elite race bike, and not every bike is like that, and it doesn't have to be. And to be able to ride some of the older bikes, I think is really fun for kids, and to be able to see again where the sport originated, and some of those people that were out advocating for the sport before it was something that was as easily accessible. And yeah.
The third turn at Frogtown, the flat turn, famous flat turn, right?
Okay.
That was an accident, right? That we didn't get, that turn originally, in the original track was above the road that kind of cuts through the whole venue. There's a stump there, and that third turn went around that stump with a real berm, kind of like the second turn. It had a real major berm around it, right? But I don't know, somehow over the 40 years, the tree fell down and they cut it down. So, and they put the road through and whatever, so so we're going to have our third turn, but it'll be below the road, and we wanted it to be a real berm, and just didn't get around to doing it, right? So it started off with kind of flat, and then we banked a little bit, and finally we just ran out of time and said, okay, leave it, right? Became the most popular part, most talked about, photographed, whatever part of the whole weekend. Everything of consequence action wise happened in that turn, right? And it was just because it was part of this whole idea that the riders, young and old, either didn't know how or forgotten how to put their foot out, right? And going to that turn, which pedal, you got the left arm up, not flat, not left arm down for sure. Like figuring that whole thing out was amazing to watch the first year, because you could tell the kids, they weren't used to that, having to put their foot out, and they have their own style of putting their foot out, and it was kind of funny to watch. And then you saw these guys you knew were either a pro level or an expert level rider 30 or 40 years ago had completely forgotten how to put their foot out, and they just slide out and they just auger into the ground, just ride it, handlebars, wheels slipping out. They just no idea on how to take their foot off the pedal to try to save them. They just go face first, mouth guard, grind right into the ground, and that's again what makes it unique too. So
yeah, I did not know that was an accident, and that it goes to show that sometimes those things that aren't intentional, sometimes they turn out to be really happy accidents. So we will never put a berm on that corner. No, it makes sense, because, and I mean, if somebody told me that there should be a berm there, I would advocate against it because it makes for one of the most fun corners. It's action packed. You can put people all around that corner and say, okay, watch, because there will be some carnage here.
Oh yeah. You're coming in at a high rate of speed, the corner's kind of downhill, right? And it's not super tight, but it's not really wide either. And it always has loose dirt on the end of the outside of it, right? And it's a little off camber, even though we kind of bank up the front side of it, it kind of tapers off into kind of an off camber deal and provides plenty of hijinks for everybody to watch. So
it does.
Perhaps the best compliment we got on the racetrack this year, which we know was by far the best one we've done. It just keeps getting better. It's the same track, but it just keeps getting dialed in a little bit more. Was when Eric Carter from Dirty Fest came up to me and he said, Huff, this racetrack is so good right now. You can pass anywhere on it. You can race the whole racetrack and there's a place to make a move, right? He goes, I definitely have my work cut out for me for next year's Dirty Fest for track design.
That's cool.
I thought that was a good compliment. I love that,
It's neat. One of the things that EC said to me was that he loved the way that the second corner caused everybody to bunch back up, because that was one of the things that he didn't love about the Dirty Fest track, was that everybody could get out and be a little bit more single file.
And spread out along the way.
And he's like,
man, it kind of goes uphill just a little bit. It could go up just a little bit, and the way it drops into the thing, you kind of can set up and,
you can make some passes there. You've got braking bumps going into the turn. You've got a wonky berm that's super fun, and I thought it was great because Eric's response was, I want bars, bar to bar and elbow to elbow the whole track. And
even more so than the prior 2 years, this year, I saw more funny, wow, crash moments in that turn than maybe the other turns from years before, right? I mean, that crash that Todd Lyons had, where he ends up upside down looking at his own butt, twisted like a pretzel, was like, wow, that happened there. Last year, 2022, when I think it was Saturday morning or something, I see Terry Tennant going over to the turn, and he had a shovel in his hand, like he's going to help, groom the track or something. And he's kind of digging in right at the beginning before the turn drops in. And I saw what was going on. I go, Terry, what are you doing? He says, oh man, I'm trying to pull this rock out of here. Right.
Okay.
I said, Terry, don't touch it. That rock has been there for 40 years. It's across that rock. That's what we're here for, is to ride across that rock, And he goes, okay, I get it. He put the shovel down and walked away, So
that's cool.
I have a great photo of me from 1980 or 81 going into that turn about where that rock is. And it's me and Ben Troya going into that turn together.
Oh, that's cool.
So
that's really neat. Yeah. The stories that come up. And I mean, when you can get people into a space where all of a sudden there are all these reminiscent stories of, the good old days, whatever that may look like, it's so fun to be around those stories. And although I wasn't there, I didn't get to ride Frogtown with you, there's so much of me that can appreciate the stories and the memories that you made and the experiences that you had. And the only way that people are able to pass on those stories and pass on that legacy is if they're able to share those stories and have people that connect with it and hear from it and understand it and get it.
Yeah. I would, based on this conversation and whatever your listeners or viewers, highly recommend going to the Frogtown website. And I think it's on the About Us or History part. You got to kind of click around the website. But there's some home movies that were taken at Frogtown 1977. fun viewing, because you see some of these guys that are in there, Brent Patterson and John Cruz and Frank Post, guys who come to Frogtown today or are sponsors of the event today are on the track racing,
That's cool.
And it's the same track, that second wonky berm you were talking about. That's the original berm. We didn't build that. It's been there for 40 years.
Wow.
We just uncovered it.
That is super
out
cool.
there. Yeah, we walked out there in the spring or whatever, early summer of 2021. It was all covered with weeds and the whole field covered with, and we walked out there and we went, oh my God, this berm is still here, and it eroded some, over the years, but heck, all we did is scrape it, and that's what we call the dinosaur berm,
Okay.
So that's what that's called. So
that makes sense. And those are the things that I wouldn't have known that. I didn't know that. And so it's fun to be able to hear those stories. And anyway, I'm a big advocate for stories anyway. So I love that. But yeah, I think to go to the Frogtown website to kind of see what, if you're listening to this, to see what the event's all about. And I would even ask anybody that's listening to this, go onto Facebook, go onto Instagram. And if you've got stories and memories from Frogtown, talk about those, tag the event, tag those pages, and share those things, because I think that it's just so fun to get everybody collected in one place. It puts everybody on a level playing field. It's really easy to walk into environments. It would be easy to walk into that class reunion that you referenced, that boring class reunion that just isn't great. You walk in with a spouse, you could bring a friend into that, and they could go the whole time and feel uncomfortable, awkward, disconnected. But to be able to go to these old school BMX events, to be able to go to Frogtown, isn't like that at all. You can bring somebody who's never been on a bike, and all of a sudden they're having fun, they're laughing, they're smiling, they're hearing about the sport, or somebody that's brand new to the sport, and all of a sudden they fall in love with it, and they're getting cheered on just the same as somebody who's been around for 40 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it is the universal sport of fun, right? And that's why we like doing it. And we're set up to kind of keep doing that up there. The fairgrounds have been really nice about us, like making some permanent fixtures to the racetrack. We've had the starting gate and starting structure has now evolved into where we have a real legit starting pad and a room to put our starting, that's laying seriously concrete, courtesy of our sponsor G-SIC Concrete. But for them to allow us to put some permanent fixtures in place is really helpful, because hey, it's just like we added a ram to pull the gate up. Well, yeah, for sure we didn't have that 40 years ago, but you know what? The gate's heavy, and we have to find 2 or 3 volunteers to lift that thing up for 3 days. And it's kind of dangerous in case it falls on someone, they let it go and it falls on someone's foot or something. So why not have some modern technology and pull the damn thing up, right? And so, all for the authenticity deal, but I ain't stupid, so,
Yeah. Yeah, you can add in some modern things, and it doesn't ruin it. And I think people can complain about anything, but ultimately the bottom line is that we get to go racing, and that's the fun part.
And the hill and those turns, the old berm and the flat turn. I mean, those are the stars of the weekend, is that hill and that track.
Absolutely.
I mean? For sure. I tell people that all the time. The real star is that hill, because that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. That first straight, I was talking to somebody who said, I thought I saw a picture, that hill looked pretty big, but then I saw another picture and it didn't look that bad. And I said, oh, here, let me show you. And I pulled up a video of the starting hill, and he goes, oh, that's a huge hill. And I said, it's super cool, because you get 8 guys just sprinting towards that first berm, and you've got some serious speed.
Yeah. Well, when you see this, and of course the track was made for side hack racing, right? I mean, the side hacks, and those are something that there's kind of a novelty, but man, you don't have to know crap about BMX to appreciate the fun of watching those things go, right? Whether it's as accomplished racers as the Crawford brothers or some newbies, right? That don't know where you put your head or you're supposed to put your foot out or whatever. You just know they're having a great time, and it's fun to watch for, whoever is watching,
Yeah. It's a good time. I think it's a place that the entire family can hang out and have fun, which is BMX in general, but I think especially the Frogtown Classic has just been something that I just admire. I'm so thankful for what you've done, what you've put into that, and the amount of time that you've invested into just this opportunity. I know it's not just for me, but sometimes I feel like it's, for me.
Hey, we were able to bond with you and your dad for a whole several days then up there by you guys jumping in and helping, which is a huge help. And that's what we appreciate you, Jay, like being one of those guys to give a task to that maybe wouldn't seem all that fun to do, but you're like, hey, I'm on it, what else you need, and just kept taking more stuff on. And as a guy whose head was about ready to explode every day, every minute of every day for a week, it's helpful to have moments like that. So I appreciate it.
Good. Well, that's the goal. Is my goal is always to take as much stress away from you as I can. So I knew I wasn't going to get rid of all of it, but I knew that if I knew that I was capable of accomplishing some monotonous tasks. So,
and hey, before I forget, just for those thinking of coming or been there before, and speaking of that hill and being tired and being 60 years old and trying to get back up that hill for your next moto, we're really going to consider ways to create a shuttle to get people back up to the hill that have a moto coming up really soon. So
I don't know. Do you have to, is there a qualifier to be able to use the shuttle? Do you have to have been there for at least a year prior and know the?
No, I mean, if you don't have a moto for 50 motos, you don't need to use the shuttle. But if you're coming up in 5,
that's 10, true.
We'll be able to hitch a ride with a little flatbed towed behind us side by side or something to get you back up the hill.
Yeah, I get that. No, I was just thinking like maybe you have to have had the experience of no shuttle and the hiking back up and forth, and you have to qualify a year prior.
No, too many people saw that interview with Chris Moeller or whatever, talking about racing 4 or 5 classes and when moto's on the gate, right? So, and that's the other thing that maybe the 2-moto system is going to help, right? Because more guys might want to ride another class. They can ride their era class, right, for the bike, and then they can ride their age group open for their buddy, or a cruiser class or whatever. So, yeah. And maybe they won't need the shuttle, so
that's cool. Well, that's fantastic, man. Todd, thank you so much. I again, thank you for what you did, and to Johnny, thank you for the effort that you guys collaborated and the way that you made this happen. I know there's so many other people that were a part of bringing this dream to reality, but thank you for just the opportunity, and thanks for taking the time to have a conversation about it. And my goal in this is that it helps to promote the event and create a further bridge between that old school and new school BMX world.
Well, that's what we like to do. And we do have a great team of people. And I tell everybody, I go, I know it's hard work and no one's getting paid, but just do not forget how many smiles you're putting on faces for 3 days, and they all get it. All of our key guys, and all of them, they understand that. That's why they do it too. So, that's what it's all about.
It is. Yeah. It's an incredible event. So I will continue advocating on your behalf as well.
Me too. Everybody come. Yeah. September 6th through the 8th.
All right. September 6th through the 8th, 2024. Be there. It's going to be incredible.
And without, feels like there's going to be something the following weekend on the Fairgrounds website too, the Gold Country Classic, which will be a mountain bike, e-bike racing, and consumer expo that'll follow up. So
Oh, wow. Cool. Something to do the following weekend as well.
Yep. Just stay in Angels Camp.
Perfect. Well, Todd,
Okay.
thank you. Have an incredible day, and we'll talk
right. Jay, thanks, buddy. Good job,
Cool.
man.
Take care.
Okay, bye. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. It is because of people like you and our sponsors who make this whole thing possible, because they have a desire to see the sport grow. If you would like to get involved in the mission of BMX Breakthrough, you can start by going to your local track, find a way to volunteer, help out, and serve there. Or you can go to our website, bmxbreakthrough.com, in order to donate, find out about sponsorship, or learn more.